He pushed the mop slowly across the marble floor, each stroke echoing softly through the vast hall of the Navy headquarters. To everyone there, he was just Mr. Jack, the quiet janitor who kept his head down, worked hard, and never complained. His uniform was faded, his shoes old, and his back slightly bent from years of work. No one really looked twice at him. After all, he was just a janitor, a single dad trying to make ends meet. But what nobody knew was that Jack once had a name that carried power, a call sign that once sent shivers through enemies and inspired entire fleets. "Hey, old man," a young lieutenant said one morning, walking by with a smirk. "You missed a spot. Maybe ask your son to help next time, if you can afford his tuition." The small group of officers chuckled as they passed, their polished boots clicking against the floor. Jack didn't respond. He just smiled faintly and kept mopping, eyes distant. That's what he always did. He stayed invisible, for a reason. Every night, after his shift ended, he'd go home to a small apartment on the edge of town. His daughter, Emma, would already be asleep, her textbook spread out on the table, her pencil still in her hand. She was the reason he kept going. Since his wife's passing, she had been his whole world. And though money was tight, he never let her see how hard it really was. When she asked, "Dad, were you ever in the Navy too?" he'd just chuckle and say, "Yeah, but that was a long time ago, sweetheart." The truth was far deeper. Jack, Falcon, Hayes had once been one of the Navy's most decorated fighter pilots, a legend known for impossible missions and fearless flying. But after an accident during a classified operation, one that cost the lives of two of his closest friends, he'd left the service quietly, carrying the weight of guilt heavier than any metal could balance. He traded his wings for a mop, choosing to serve in silence near the very institution that once honored him. One morning, everything changed. The Navy headquarters buzzed with energy, an admiral was visiting, and the staff scrambled to make everything perfect. Jack was in the main hall, polishing the floors as always, when a convoy of black cars rolled in. Officers stood at attention as Admiral Richard Steele, a tall, commanding man with silver hair and piercing eyes, entered the building. Jack kept his head down, but as the Admiral's footsteps echoed closer, something in his chest tightened. He recognized that sound, that walk. The Admiral stopped near him. "Excuse me," Steele said, "you missed a spot over here." Jack turned slightly, his face still low. "Yes, sir." The Admiral froze for a second. There was something in that voice. Familiar. Deep. Calm. He took a step closer. "Wait a minute, what's your name, son?" "Jack Hayes, sir." Steele's eyes widened slightly. The room fell silent. The younger officers, confused, looked between them. The Admiral took a step back, studying the man's weathered face. Then he said two words that made every head in the hall turn: "Call sign, Falcon." The mop fell from Jack's hand, clattering against the marble. Every officer's jaw dropped. The Admiral's voice grew louder, filled with emotion. "Falcon Hayes, the man who saved an entire squadron over the Black Sea. The pilot who went missing after Operation Silent Storm. I thought you were dead." Jack stood silently, eyes down, his heart pounding. "Just retired, sir," he said softly. Steele stepped forward and gripped Jack's shoulder firmly. "Retired? You vanished. You were a hero. We never got to thank you." The young officers looked at each other in shock. Their janitor was the Falcon. The same man they'd studied in Naval Academy history lessons. The same pilot whose missions were used as examples of courage under fire. Jack looked up, his eyes glistening. "I don't deserve thanks, sir. I lost good men that day. I wasn't strong enough to bring them all home." The Admiral's voice softened. "You brought everyone else home, son. They lived because of you. The Navy owes you more than you'll ever know." The hall went silent as the Admiral turned to the officers. "Every one of you, show respect. You're standing in front of a legend." The young lieutenant who had mocked Jack earlier stood frozen, his face pale. He tried to speak but couldn't find the words. Jack looked at him, not with anger, but with quiet understanding. "Don't judge people by the uniform they wear," he said gently. "Sometimes, the greatest battles are fought long after the war ends." In that moment, the janitor everyone ignored became a hero again, not because of medals or titles, but because of his humility, his strength, and the quiet courage that never left him. The Admiral insisted that Jack be reinstated with full honors. But Jack refused the spotlight. Instead, He asked for just one thing, a scholarship for his daughter, so she could study engineering and maybe one day build something that would protect others, just like he once did. Weeks later, at the Navy Hall of Valor ceremony, Emma stood on stage beside the Admiral as he handed her a certificate. She looked out at the crowd, tears in her eyes, as she said, "My dad taught me that real heroes don't need to be seen. They just keep doing what's right, even when no one's watching." The audience rose in a standing ovation. Jack, standing quietly in the back of the hall in his janitor's uniform, lowered his head, a tear escaping down his cheek. The Admiral caught his eye and saluted. Slowly, Jack returned it, his hand trembling, his heart full. And that's the story of a man who once ruled the skies, then swept the floors of the same halls that once cheered his name. A man who proved that true greatness isn't about recognition, it's about integrity, love, and sacrifice.